we're gonna introduce ourselves. I'm gonna go ahead first. My name is Grant Sashere. I am a I've covered LSU since my junior year of college. Um, I've graduated, of course, from LSU, the Management School of Mass Communication. I've not only have I do I work currently right now for Crescent City Sports in New Orleans, and also TigerBait.com with Mike Scarborough and Preston Guy. I also worked with this guy here for a little over a year at And the Valley Shook, which is a LSU affiliate site with SB Nation. If you got, SB Nation's done a great job for, who knows how long, creating content for sports fans, not only across the country, but across the world. And I'm really excited to be here. This is our first show, of course. The first time me and Zach have worked together for over a year now. So Zach, take it away. Introduce yourself to the folks, and we'll get it going.
Yeah, Grant and I met in the press box at Omaha. That was the first time we ever physically crossed paths. We were in the same room together. I've been running Valley Shook for 5 years now. So been with SB Nation for about 10, 11 years, going on 5 years now, running Valley Shook, bouncing around all over Valley Shook, or SB Nation at large, I should say. I'm doing some baseball writing for the St. Louis Cardinals website. So shout out Scooter and the gang over at Viva Alberto's. Cardinals are 3-0. Been a big Cardinals guy since last weekend. I did a little bit of stuff for the bird rights for the Pelicans. So RIP to the bird rights. Those guys, Ali and the crew, they're still put out good work. And then I daylight as a middle school teacher. So, got a whole bunch going on in my life, but this is cool. This is cool that we're doing this.
So if you ever see Zach come in the show and he's just really groggy, it's not you. It's not that he doesn't want to talk about LSU football. It's just that he had to deal with 12-year-olds for 8 hours. And that is, I can only imagine what I was like when I was 12. I was a pain in the butt. So just keep it cool. And Zach, he's still kind of waking up from a very long day of working, of course, in the Baton Rouge area. And he was in Nashville for a very long time. Now we're glad to have him back here. And I live in New Orleans, but we're glad to have him back here in the state of Louisiana. So he'll be up and close and personal with LSU sports now, more than he was in a few years past, because you're in Nashville. So all you had was Vanderbilt.
Yeah. But the first year living in Nashville just happened to be the 2019 season. It just so happened LSU got to come up to Vandy, so it was a happy little planets aligning moment for me.
That's pretty cool, man. That's pretty cool. So on today's show, of course, we're going to talk a lot about football. Of course, this is the voice of College Football Network, but we'll also dive into, of course, LSU losing against UCLA in the women's tournament, Elite Eight. Their third straight Elite Eight appearance, but they fell just short to the UCLA Bruins. We'll talk a little bit about that. Of course, Samaya Smith is entering the transfer portal. That just hit the news in about the last 20 to 30 minutes before we hopped on.
Barely half an hour ago,
So it'll be very interesting to see what Kim Mulkey does during the off season. And we'll also talk about baseball as well, because, of course, LSU fans are, you can't – the thing is, you got to sweep over Mississippi State. The thing is, though, like, eventually it's going to be hard to talk about football for, 40 minutes to an hour, because obviously not football season. You got to find topics. But baseball is a great layover. Of course, LSU baseball is just as big as LSU football. So, and also keep you guys watching, because we know right now you guys are in baseball mode. But the good thing is LSU football is back on the Ponderosa. They opened up spring ball a couple of weeks ago. And there's a lot of hype around this team, Zach. Of course, it might be the deepest team that Brian Kelly's ever had, especially on the defensive side of the ball. So Zach, just seeing what you've been hearing and been reading, I know you're not up close as personal as I am, because of course I've been in the field quite a bit. But what are the vibes you've been getting from this team from your perspective?
Let me answer your question with a question. Is this the deepest team that Brian Kelly's ever had at any stop in his career?
That's a great question. I mean,
Yeah.
I would say the 2018 team.
It's got to be, right?
Solid. Yeah, I mean, even in Notre Dame, he didn't really have any. I mean, he had a great team. Like 2012, of course, was a great team, and the 2018 Notre Dame team was pretty nasty as well, in terms of who they had. But I mean, they never had. They didn't nearly have the talent nor depth that LSU does now, and even this year's Notre Dame team had more talent and more depth than Brian Kelly's team, than all the teams Brian Kelly had, because, of course, because we're in the NIL era and we're in the transfer portal era. So some of the players that Brian Kelly probably couldn't get a couple years ago, he can get now if he was still at Notre Dame. And do I know if Brian Kelly would have done what Marcus Freeman did? Maybe, probably so. But again, we're talking about a different era of college football. But yeah, I do think that this LSU team is probably the most talented team he's ever had as a coach, period.
Yeah.
And he's had a lot of great teams too. A lot of great teams.
Yeah. You bring back maybe the best quarterback in the country. I've got an echo happening. Hang on, sorry. Anyway, you bring back the best quarterback in or arguably the best quarterback in the country. Offensive line, it's talented. They've been recruiting their tails off up there, but now it's put up or shut up time because Will Campbell's not working through that door anymore. Emory Jones, gone. Miles Frazier, gone. Garrett Dillinger, gone. There's going to be a lot of shuffling of pieces around. That this wide receiver group, I'm excited to see him, though, especially with the way Nuss can kind of just make ball go 70 yards, 80 yards with just a little flick of the wrist. And he's got some real speedsters with Hilton and Barry and Brown and Nick Anderson and Aaron Anderson. Tradez Green seems primed for a blowout breakout season. It's not going to be easy replacing statistically the best tight end in LSU history, but man, oh man, if someone can do it, it's probably Green, especially if that showing in Houston against Baylor is any inclination of what's to come. LSU might finally have like a legit. Not to say Mason Taylor isn't, but one of those like freak shows. Like, what am I supposed to do with this? What we had hoped Kamorian Pimpton was going to be a couple years ago coming in. Defensively, the Bo Davis thing stings. Grant, you've been out there, or have you been on practice since Kyle Williams has come along? And if so, what is the key tackle situation been looking like?
Okay, yeah. So I will get to all that, but as we start talking more and more about the spring football. But yeah, like I started going out there. What was the second? I couldn't go the first week because, of course, for Coast City Sports, I cover a lot of high school sports, especially in the New Orleans area. So I was actually in Lake Charles for the boys' state basketball championships, where, of course, ironically, I was seeing Elijah Hayden, yes, the number one player in the country for the class of 2027, also plays basketball. So I was able to see him play some hoops. And then also Javon Vital, who got offered from LSU from Hamilton Christian. He's also a guy that's going to somebody's going to be high on LSU's priority list come next year, because they're both going to be juniors next year. But yeah, the defensive line group, they look great. Kyle Williams is entering a great situation because Bo Davis really revitalized that the interior defensive line, right? Because remember, he was the defensive tackles coach. Kevin Peoples coaches the defensive ends, but on the interior defensive line, there's a lot more depth, a lot more size, a lot more talent compared to the one that Bo Davis took over. So, and also Kyle Williams is a great coach. Kyle Williams, of course, is a former LSU great, a former NFL great. He went to the Pro Bowl, I believe, 5 or 6 times with the Buffalo Bills. I mean, he was the best player on the Buffalo Bills when they were bad, right? Like, he played for them when they were bad. His last year there, I think, was the first time they've been in the playoffs since '99, right? Like, I was a few months.
Josh Allen Bills, yeah.
Yeah. So, yeah, like, what's his name? EJ Manuel and Ryan Fitzpatrick. Yeah. Name it. So that I think he went through a lot of different quarterbacks, man. But anyway, but yeah, Kyle Williams not only was a great player, of course, at both the collegiate and pro level, but he's also was the defensive coordinator at Ruston High School. I know high school, a lot of people are like, well, it's high school. Why does that matter? Well, I mean, when he's the defensive coordinator at Ruston, they arguably had the best defense in the state of Louisiana. I know this because I saw this firsthand. And of course, I cover a lot of high school sports. And he developed a lot of guys who ended up playing at the Division I level, including Ahmad Bro. He was Ahmad Bro's position coach when they were both at Ruston. Aiden Anding was a starting cornerback. Anding, Zach. And this also goes for people who may not know this, but Aiden Anding really didn't play much football before his junior year. And then he burst on the scene his junior year and then became one of the better top quarterbacks in the country. He was a basketball player, actually. He was a hooper before he became a football player. So, and they're both developed under Kyle Williams. So yeah, like of course it sucks to lose Bo Davis, but you bring in a guy who's familiar with the program. He's a legend in the LSU football community or LSU community in general. A guy who was a dog from first-hand accounts who were teammates with him and coached him, whatever. But then also he knows how to handle these young guys, and that's very important, especially we're dealing with a different age of college football. We're dealing with the NIL era. We're talking about the transfer portal era. So you bring in the guy who knows how to handle, Gen Z. I'm Gen Z, but of course the guys we're talking about are on the younger end of Gen Z. So it's just different caliber of kid than 5-10 years ago. And also they're able to make money compared to players in the past. So I think that bringing in a guy like Kyle Williams will definitely help out the defensive line. I don't know how great of a defensive line coach he will be at the collegiate level. From what I can gather, what he's done so far as a coach, even though it's high school, he's done a great job. But the thing is also, which is also very important too, Zach, is that he's a Louisiana guy. Every single coach on the coach staff.
So is Bo Davis, but yeah.
Yeah. So and including Bo Davis, even when Bo Davis was on the staff, when Brian Kelly hired last year's staff, he made sure every single guy was either A, went to LSU, B, is from Louisiana, or C, has ties to Louisiana in some way. And some of those coaches nailed all three, right? So he's just continuing
Raymond
what he already did. Let's just bring in Kyle Williams, a guy who's a North Louisiana guy, right? It's important to bring in somebody from North Louisiana because you want to make sure you get South and North. You want to create a wall around Louisiana. And, of course, I know that's kind of ironic because Bradford just committed to Ohio State, which we'll talk about later in the show. But that's his whole goal. He wants to do what Nick Saban did. He wants to make sure no one comes in the state and just takes kids away. And I think Brian Kelly learned from his mistakes early during his time at LSU, which was to make sure you get guys who are from Louisiana who can relate to not only the players here in the state of Louisiana, but also know the high school coaches. Because a lot of times these coaches actually know their coaches because either they played against them or recruited from them in the past. That's very important when you're at a place like LSU.
And do you think maybe it's I don't want to say calculated risk, and I don't mean to sound insulting toward Kyle Williams, but do you think because he hasn't coached college before, you run less of a chance of losing him within a year or two? Because that defensive tackle coaching position, that's been a revolving door for 8-10 years now, or just one after another, and I don't get that risk of what if Kyle Williams leaves for a bigger job? I don't get that feeling from him.
No, and that's the thing. A lot of people thought that was guy with Bo Davis. That's why they hired Bo Davis, the British stability. I don't think anybody expected Bo Davis to leave for the. Because here's the thing: if it was it's my thing. If it were another NFL, let's say it was the Green Bay Packers, I don't think he would have taken the job. The reason why I say that is because he's probably already still living in Baton Rouge.
They tried so hard to get him home,
right? And then it's and then Saints are right down the road. And also remember, his son goes to Southeastern. And so he's right down the road. I think it's still he wants to stay home. I'm gonna say he's not from Louisiana, but of course he is at LSU. His son's currently going to Southeastern, and it's not that hard of a move, right? It's not like you move from one state to another. You're just moving an hour down I-10. You know what I'm saying? So it's not that bad of a move. I think if it was any other job, could he leave? Oh yeah, of course. But I think it would be less likely of a chance that he left. But it's just happened to be the New Orleans Saints. They're right down the road. It's an easy move, and these coaches are tired of moving. And I know this because I'm the son of a college football coach. So eventually, not only do the coaches get tired of moving, but the families get tired of moving. I think so. I think that's something you have to factor in. But yeah, Kyle Williams I think that was also a huge factor. Like Kyle Williams is not going to leave for another job unless it's like a defense coordinator job, right? I mean, I think
unless he really blows up, which would be great if he blew up this year.
Yeah,
that means LSU had success up front. So
yeah, definitely. And that, a huge component of Russ's defenses were up front, right? He was the defense coordinator at Ruston High School. So hopefully that could translate to the collegiate level. Yeah, I hope so. But I think but I still think, is it the greatest hire in the world? No. But it's somebody you're like, I like this hire. Yeah, this could be it. This is interesting. I like this. Let's roll with it, right? That's the kind of hire he was. So, let's roll with it. Like, and he knows the program. He knows the people. He's a Louisiana guy. He developed Ahmad Bro, and Ahmad Bro is a starting defensive tackle for you. Why not? But speaking of defense, we're gonna get to the defense in a second, kind of go full in depth. But let's talk about the offense first, and kind of go down from position by position. Of course, starting with the quarterback.
You have notes?
Yeah, I always have notes. I gotta be prepared.
Oh man,
I know what I'm talking about. Yeah, but so I kind of did like a depth chart, kind of what my predictions will be. Starting off the top, quarterback. Of course, the starting quarterback here, Nussmeier. So far, Michael Van Buren has been the backup quarterback. He's been getting a lot of the number 2 reps. Of course, Michael Van Buren is the guy we brought up from Mississippi State. And I think he's better than, what's the guy's name? AJ Swan. Well, we brought him in, and then everybody, LSU brought him in, and then he played so bad that Brian Kelly probably phoned in the locker room, hey, whatever you got in there, like whether it's the go juice, give it to Nussmeier because we need him back. And then of course we didn't know then, but Ricky Collins was going to transfer, so that's why they didn't put him in. But anyway, you have Gary Nussmeier, starting quarterback, arguably could be the best quarterback coming back in college football, right? I mean, all indications say. I know a lot of people have had criticisms about Garrett Nussmeier, but Garrett Nussmeier threw for over 4,000 yards, had nearly 30 touchdowns, and he had 12 interceptions, which is something that a lot of people said before the end, that he's probably going to throw 12 interceptions, at least. Yeah. You know what I'm saying? So, it's what we predicted him to be. That's actually a pretty good season. I know we've had a lot of criticisms. If this was 2011, LSU fans would have killed for that type of season. And also,
brother, I was in Tiger Band during those years.
Yeah, and Zach knows this too. He saw a lot of bad quarterbacks.
I talked myself into Anthony Jennings because of one pass.
Yeah, and that's the thing too. Is like people don't realize this as well. Is that he had a better year. Like think about James Daniels, Joe Burrow, and Garrett Nussmeier. Of those 3, Garrett Nussmeier had the best first season as a starting quarterback. Joe Burrow, when his first year starting, had 4 games where he completed 50% of his passes or less, and he also throughout the whole month
in October.
Exactly, and then James Daniels. There were some games where he threw under 100 yards and looked awful his first year. Now, James Daniels, of course, had overall had a great season. He beat Alabama that year, and of course he owned Florida, which he did. I mean, he's Florida's dad. If you ask any LSU fan, but he had some great moments, and then of course both those guys blew up his second year. Of course, both won the Heisman. Joe Burrow won the Heisman and won the national championship. James Daniels probably had the most probably had the greatest, probably had the most dynamic season of any LSU player in the program's history. And you can make a case that he's probably the most dynamic player that LSU's ever had offensively, at least. Of course, defensively, that would probably go to Tyrann Mathieu. But, Zach, with all that being said, do you think that all the pressure that's on Garrett Nussmeier going into this year is justified?
I think with pressure comes back expectations, and we expect now Garrett Nussmeier to compete and possibly win a Heisman Trophy. We expect and hope that Garrett Nussmeier will go top 5 in the 2026 draft. We expect Garrett Nussmeier to compete for a national championship and bare minimum at least make playoff. Jaden Daniels should have won a championship had it not been for that atrocious 2023 team defense. Joe Burrow, of course, won a championship. So I don't see why the expectation is going to change for Garrett Nussmeier. And I think he's wired for it. I remember watching the Oklahoma game. The Oklahoma game when it looked like he broke his shoulder, his collarbone, and he went out there. He didn't have to do that. That's a sign of a dude who wants it and wants it for this state. He's from here, or at least he claims Louisiana. He's from here, like Charles, correct? I mean, I know he bounced around a lot, but he wants to be great. He'll dive head first for first downs in bowl games against Baylor and Texas. Don't tell him this game doesn't mean anything. This means something to him. So he's a guy that I want in my foxhole anytime. And if the Saints are bad this season, which I'm assuming they will be, I would absolutely take Garrett Nussmeier with whatever pick they end up with come next April.
Yeah, even in the middle of the last season, there was talks about whether or not Garrett Nussmeier was going to enter the NFL draft, and for good reason. I mean, he was electric. He made a lot of NFL-esque throws, but then the next play, he'll make a throw like, why would you even throw that? What did you see there? I mean, the best way to put this in perspective, and I say this all the time, Garrett Nussmeier is literally just a great value Brett Favre. And I don't mean that in any negative connotation. I'm just talking about how talented he is. But if you look at how Brett Favre played and look at how Garrett Nussmeier played, exact same play. I'm not saying he is Brett Favre, but if you look at what they do, all the plays that they make, it's eerily similar.
Yeah, just hopefully Garrett Nussmeier. As far as I know, Garrett Nussmeier's never defrauded any companies to build volleyball stadiums, but we'll look into that. Nussmeier's kind of got some Uncle Rico to him from Napoleon Dynamite.
Yeah, go. Sorry, Brett Favre did not defraud companies. He defrauded the welfare system, Mississippi. The stuff that goes to like poor people in Mississippi. That made it even worse.
Brett Favre, if you're watching, I'm sorry for getting the facts mixed up. You can come sort me out. But yeah, Nussmeier's got some Uncle Rico, just that cannon of an arm. The A&M game was bad, but I would push back with how much was on his plate last year because of just whatever happened with the offensive line last season. It kind of came crashing down on Nussmeier, and there was no running game. And any quarterback that's being asked to throw 50, 55 times, there's going to be some bad throws, especially on the road in a raucous place like Kyle Field can get to be. It's not that surprising that, maybe the severity of how bad it got surprising, but it shouldn't have been that shocking that, oh no, Nuss had a bad game on the road at Texas A&M at night with basically no supporting cast, or at least along the offensive line. It was a house of cards, and Nuss had so much on his plate to deal with that it's not that shocking.
Yeah, I mean, just Nussmeier. I mean, I think the pressure is justified, and that's because the last two quarterbacks, when you think of Joe Burrow and Jaden Daniels, look what they did in their second year. They both won a Heisman. Of course, Joe Burrow won a national championship for LSU, and probably what a lot of people consider to be the greatest college football team that ever stepped foot on the field. I know there's a lot of debate about that. Of course, the 2001 Miami Hurricanes come to mind. The 95 Nebraska Cornhuskers also come to mind too. But offensively, at least, there's no other offense that will be like LSU 2019 LSU, and that'll be for a long time. Of course, Jaden Daniels was just basically putting up 2000 like Madden 04 Michael Vick type numbers. I mean, he was it was a joy to watch from the press box to see what he did, especially against the game against Florida, where he became the first player to to throw for 300 yards and then rush for another 200. Those are the type of seasons that they'll have. So I also feel like because of those two guys and what they did, a lot of people might put on they might be a little bit unfair in the Nussmeier. And what I mean by that is a lot like what happened with Jane Daniels when he was at LSU. Even though he was the reason why LSU was in a lot of those games in 2023, where he was throwing for 300 yards per game. A lot of LSU fans felt like he didn't do enough. And they're like, oh, well, he hasn't done this, he hasn't done that. And this is like after games where he's thrown for 300 and running for another 80. And it really wasn't until Ole Miss where the defense completely collapsed. But I think Ole Miss had over 700 yards of offense. I think they broke the SEC single game total yardage record. And then Jane Daniels was putting on recorded like a combined 450 yards of total offense. I mean, he was the reason why LSU even had a chance to win the game in the final 10 seconds.
He hit Chris Hilton in the hands on the last play of the game for a touchdown, and Hilton just couldn't come down with it.
And then that was the moment where LSU fans realized, oh wait, he's that guy. And it took it was a lot of unfair criticism. They were talking about Nussmeier should be starting. And guess what? If Nussmeier started that year, like LSU would have not done what they would not won 10 games. Right?
LSU didn't make it to Tampa.
Exactly.
They don't make it to Tampa that year. I mean,
they probably don't make it to Tampa. For Nussmeier to have a chance that started his very first game. Right? Like I don't like and I think that's the thing about LSU fans sometimes where sometimes I get it, like you're upset, but don't try to make Jane Daniels into Joe Burrow. Joe Burrow is Joe Burrow. Jane Daniels is Jane Daniels, and Garrett Nussmeier is Garrett Nussmeier. Don't try to compare him to those two groups of guys. I know we kind of doing this whole thing where we're talking about what he can do his second year, but we're just going off of history. But we're also not saying he's going to do what those two guys did. What those two guys did were incredible. Just let Garrett Nussmeier be Garrett Nussmeier, and then everything else will play out. But we got to move on because I don't want to spend too much time on Garrett Nussmeier. We're going to start going down the list. Of course, running back, Cade Durham's back, leading rusher from last season. As a true freshman, ran for 150 yards. I mean, was by far the best running back LSU had. And yes, Josh Williams was serviceable. But Cade Durham brought something that the other running backs in that same room couldn't bring. And of course, Trey Hall. It also doesn't help that John Emery was lost the first game of the year. It also didn't help that Trey Hawley was out for the whole year because of all the legal issues that we're not going to talk about. It's too confusing for me to even talk about. I don't even know what's going on there. No one knows what's going on there. But that's that. However, of course, Caleb Jackson comes back. But Caleb Jackson had a downright terrible year last year. We all thought he was going to take the next step. He never did. He actually took a step back. He didn't score a single touchdown last year. I did not find that out until Buddy Sanji said that at spring practice. I thought that was pretty incredibly, but incredibly bad. So there's that. But then also you have Harlan Berries, and it's already enrolled at LSU. He's been participating in spring ball. He's got in a few formations, but we'll see as spring continues. And of course, we got fall camp coming in August. So let's see how his development improves from the start to the end of August. And of course, JT Lindsey, the other highly touted running back out of the state of Louisiana from Alexandria High School to be Pacific, he will be coming in during fall camp. He's not enrolled yet. He's still at Alexandria High School where he's running track. But that's it for the running backs. Wide receivers, This has been the starter so far. It's usually been the combination of Aaron Anderson, Chris Hilton, and Xavier Thomas. I don't think that's going to change anytime soon. Those three guys were the starters in the bowl game, of course. Aaron Anderson, the leading receiver last year, had 884 yards. Was probably LSU's most reliable receiver last year, even more so than Kyron Lacey. Chris Hilton had dealt with injury issues his whole entire career, especially last year, was well noted. It became just kind of meme, like, hey, is Chris Hilton playing this week? Like, where is he? But he's been healthy so far. He was desperately missed last year because LSU desperately needed a deep threat, and also to help that Kyle Parker was also lost for the year. He was also another guy who was going to be a deep threat. Of course, Xavier Thomas, who is a return specialist. He'll be a key contributor for LSU next season. But in the rotation, we've seen Nick Anderson, the transfer from Oklahoma. He's been in full pass, but remember, he's coming off of an ACL tear, so I think LSU's still trying to keep it easy. Barry Brown, who is a transfer from Kentucky, he's a speedster, extremely fast. You will definitely see him on the field this fall, and it wouldn't surprise me if he found himself in the starting rotation. He's already taking first-team reps as we speak. And then, of course, I already mentioned Kyle Parker. Kyle Parker's also coming off of a season-ending injury from last year, but he's been full go.
Tricep tear.
Yeah. And Kyle Parker, I think, was a guy that a lot of people thought was going to have was going to be the dark horse of receiving corps. There was a lot of praise from him from coaches, even from Nussmeier himself, how he carried himself, the routes he's running, and also, of course, his speed. So, luckily, hopefully, he'll stay healthy this time around, because I think we'll really get to see the full potential of Kyle Parker. But also want to mention one name, too, is Destin Hill. Destin Hill was a transfer from Florida State. He's been balling out so far. He's been doing he's been getting a lot of reps with the second team. But he's a guy who did not play for nearly 2 years. Last season, he was supposed to get a lot of playing time for Florida State before he had an ACL tear. I believe he had a season-ending injury. And then he's off for the year. Transfer to LSU, which is a very tough place to transfer to, because we all know how hard it is to be a receiver at LSU. Jack Best literally transferred out of LSU to go to TCU to even get a chance to play, because that's how stacked the receiving room was. And Jack Best, of course, will be a day 2 drafted in this year's draft. So that's your receiving core right there. But Zach, what are your overall thoughts about the receiving core before we move on to tight ends?
I like it. They really spent their salary cap, their free agency money on Nick Anderson and on Barry Brown, and they need some type of speedster to help kind of stretch the field, because while I love Hilton, you just can't count on him, and he was transformative for this offense last year when he was out there, but man, it just took too long. And if that's what Barry Brown can be, and if Barry Brown can stay healthy, and if he can stay healthier than Chris Hilton, something's gonna have to give. We're not in the business of playing favorites or seniority or being sentimental. I mean, we're trying to win a championship. I am a big fan of Aaron Anderson, and man, if he was 6'1", 6'2", he might be the next great LSU receiver. And I hate that LSU's got him listed at what, 5'10", 5'9". He's not that. They're being real generous with that height measurement, but he can play. But them short dudes, they're scrappy, they're tough, and I mean, if I gotta have it, I'm throwing to Anderson every single play if I have to. He's always going to get the ball from me if it's up to me. I think this skill. I do wonder, is there a true possession guy, stick mover? I mean, I guess maybe that's Anderson, but Anderson kind of seems to be more of a slot person. But like if it's third and 8 and somebody's got to run a curl, who are you throwing the ball to, or who do you trust most to come down with that? Because I'm not sure at this moment.
Yeah, I mean, I think that'll be Aaron. Like, the thing is, you don't really, exactly, as you said, like, who will be that position receiver for LSU? They don't really have a lot of big guys. Of course, Aaron Anderson about 5'8", 5'9". Chris Owen, 6 foot. He's not like you don't have a tall receiver on the roster, which will pose issues. However, Zach, that kind of leads us into our next position group, which is tight end. Because
speaking of tall guys,
you have I'll say Nick Anderson 6'4". Nick Anderson 6'4", 220. But right now we really haven't gotten a chance to really see him because I think LSU's still trying to take it easy with him. Because he had a season injury, leg injury last year. I think it was his knee. I think it was an ACL tear. But at the tight end spot, I think as much as losing a guy like Mason Taylor stings, because of his veteran presence, his toughness, his ability to not only catch the ball but also block, put his hand in the dirt and block the defender across from him. You not only do you return Trey'Dez Green, who 6'7", 220. I mean, his athleticism was off the charts. Of course, he also played on LSU's basketball team. You can line him up on the inside, you can line him up in the slot, and you can also line him up out wide. He played a lot of receiver in high school. He didn't really play the tight end position in high school. He played out wide as a receiver at Zachary High School, which is why they're still working with him on blocking. Of course, he's gotten better. But remember, he didn't start playing football to his junior year, so he's extremely raw, raw. But the potential.
He's your Jimmy Graham.
Yeah. Or Antonio Gates, you know what I'm saying? So he is he's a legit 6'6", 6'7". Like he's that big. 230 pounds. And he might have a chance. Even might be LSU's leading receiver next year. I mean, he could be that good. But of course, you also have another tight end in Bauer Sharp. I wouldn't say Bauer Sharp's a back. Bauer Sharp was Oklahoma's leading pass catcher and their leader in receiving yards last year. And of course, Oklahoma's offense was not very good by any standards. I mean, I don't even know how that team beat Alabama, by the way. Like that's like he had 42 catches for 324 yards and 2 touchdowns at Oklahoma. But before that, he was at Southeastern, where he was a really good player for the Lions. So he's very familiar with Louisiana. So this is not foreign land to him, right? He was just down the road in Hammond. But he's been getting a lot of first team reps whenever LSU does 12 personnel, right? He's somebody that you could bring in who has experience. And while Trey'Dez Green is still learning how to block, I'm going to say he's a bad blocker or anything, but remember, he's extremely raw to the sport of football. This will be his 4th year of playing organized football. So bring a guy like Bauer Sharp, who is a veteran, a guy who has started in the SEC, a guy who is a reliable target for Oklahoma. You bring him in, and you can also put him in 12 personnel. You have 2 really good tight ends on either side of the ball. And we all know Brian Kelly loves using tight ends. If there's 2 positions that Brian Kelly has always done a great under whenever Brian Kelly's the head coach, the 2 positions of the 2 groups that always produce the most NFL talent, the offensive line and tight ends. And you might have 2 of the best tight ends. You actually might have the 2 best tight ends in the SEC. And if you have 2 great tight ends, the sky's the limit.
Yeah, the Kelsey brothers. Ever heard of them?
Yeah.
Brian Kelly found those guys. So Cole Kmet, I'm blanking on some of these Notre Dame tight ends, but Notre Dame pumped out a lot of tight ends.
Zach Gofford, what's his name? Michael Myers? What was the guy's name?
Yeah, Michael Myers, not the Halloween guy, but Michael Myers. Tyler Eifert, I think is his name, but yeah, that's just being nitpicky. And we could segue that into offensive line. This group is talented, but somebody's got to step up and earn these jobs. Now, it looks like you got 1 starter already established in Braylon Moore. but he's not running first team center right now. Is that correct? But that doesn't really mean anything this point in the spring.
Yeah, it's DJ Chester. So all the current starters right now, but we're not in the offensive line yet, but we'll start talking about it. But all the starters on the offensive line were the same stars on the offensive line in the bowl game. But Zach, go ahead.
And then they're still waiting on Josh Thompson, who's at Northwestern finishing up his schoolwork. He'll be here in the summer.
He's already here. He's already here.
Oh, he's here already? Oh, even better.
Okay. Yeah.
Is he running guard or tackle right now?
He's tackle. He just got in. So he's with the second team, but LSU brought him in to start. All right. So if he loses the starting job, that just shows you how good this offensive line is. You know what I'm saying? But what they could be. So, but go ahead.
And then so from left to right, we're assuming it's going to be Tyree Adams as your first team left tackle. We're assuming they're going to let DJ Chester and Paul Mabanga battle this up for the guard spot because Braylon Moore didn't come from Virginia Tech to play backup center. He's going to be your center. Right guard, Josh Thompson is going to be either your right guard or your right tackle. I think the coaching staff, they want him to be tackle, but if not, they're more than happy to have him be an experienced interior offensive lineman, which, interior offensive line, really, we saw it last year when Dellinger went out, that thing kind of crumbled from the inside out. God bless DJ Chester, but he didn't seem he was ready to be a center, and playing guard's probably more natural for him. So it starts from the inside and going out. So if you can bring in a multi-year starter from the Big Ten to be your right guard, you can do a whole lot worse. And then right tackle, it's going to be what? Ori Williams. It's going to be Weston McKinney, perhaps. And then there's a lot of stud freshmen they've got. I mean, Brad Davis has been recruiting like gangbusters, where they might start true freshmen. Solomon Tallis and Carius Kern. That's how good these young guys are. So they're going to push these guys, and we still haven't really seen Cohen Eccles get significant run. There's the younger Borderline, Brett Borderline, right? Brett Borderline's the younger brother, the offensive tackle. Yeah. So they got a lot of combinations to play with. Bo. Thank you. Brett's the tight end.
No. I'm sorry to confuse you. Bo is the older brother. Brett's the younger brother. Bo is the one that they use them both as an offensive lineman, and then also when they bring in the heavy packages, he'll become the tight end. But it just shows you how much people they have on the offensive lines. Like, what do we do with these guys?
Yeah. Lance Hurd transferred out, and you didn't really miss him. Because you still had Will Campbell for 2024, and that's like, okay, well, Weston or Tyree, go get in there. Now it's your turn. Yeah. So which is amazing too, considering LSU's history with offensive line prior to Brad Davis. If you would have lost a 5-star tackle 5-6 years ago, that would have been, oh my God, the program's crumbling. But now it's kind of like, yeah, okay.
Yeah, Brad Davis is actually one of the holdovers from Coach O, because remember, Coach O fired James Craig in the middle of the season because he got in trouble with the NCAA, and then they managed to poach Brad Davis from Arkansas, and that was an easy hire. Brad Davis is one of the better offensive line coaches around the country. Of course, he also is from Baton Rouge, so it was an easy hire for Coach O. And then, of course, you bring in a guy like Brian Kelly, who is at every single college he has been at, they've had great offensive linemen. Going to Cincinnati, you brought up Jason Kelsey earlier. Jason Kelsey wasn't even on the offensive line when he first got to Cincinnati. He was like a walk-on fullback or running back. And then they moved him to the offensive line. And, of course, he is now going to be in Canton, right? Was the best center in the NFL for a very long time. That's just the type. And also, I forgot to mention another guy who's Kyle Rudolph was also another tight end that ended up having a long NFL career. So offensive line to tight ends. If you're offensive line tight end, if you want to go in the NFL, LSU should stop because that's where Brian Kelly is at right now. But yeah, just go the tight. I really like what ever since Brian Kelly's gotten here is that the tight ends and the offensive line have been like Mason Taylor was a 3-star player. Of course, I know that doesn't say much because, of course, we all know who his dad is. We all know who his uncle is. just shows you his family genes. I mean, he's got some insane family genes. Not only is his dad Jason Taylor and his uncle is Zach Thomas, both of those guys are in Canton. His mom was was a swimmer. I think his older brother was a receiver at Arizona. Like, they got an insane athletic family. But even
Troy.
that, yeah. Oh, and there's Joy. Yeah. But anyway, there's Joy. But anyway, yeah. But like even the other tight ends, Trades Green. You brought in Trades Green. I know Cole Marion Pipton didn't work out, but those are the guys you bring. You're bringing in more legit tight ends, guys who can block and catch. A lot of times at LSU, besides Richard Dixon, they never really had any difference makers in tight end. I mean, it's been a while. I mean, maybe it's been like I think
D'Angelo Peterson.
Like yeah, John David LaFleur. Is that? I think you're talking about JD. I forgot his dad's name, but his dad was also
JD's son. Yeah.
JD's dad was a solid tight end at LSU.
David
but you
LaFleur.
David LaFleur, yeah. I thought it was I said John David. I was like, wait, is it John David Senior or is it just David? But you never really had any difference makers at that position. And then also on the offensive line front, you're loaded. Mm-hmm. You're absolutely loaded with offensive line. Like the thing is, oh hey, Will Campbell in any of the year, oh man, we're losing a great left tackle. But hey Tyree, welcome to the show. Like Tyree Adams, that's how much trust the coaching staff has in Tyree Adams. I'm not saying he's gonna be Will Campbell, but anytime Will Campbell or Emory Jones was out the game for like a play or for a series, guess who they brought in? Tyree Adams, because they trust him. So this is now his time to shine and show what he could do. I mean, and he looked awesome in the bowl game. Paul Mubenga. I know Paul Mubenga didn't look when he was first brought in when Gary Dellinger got hurt. I know he looked rough, but as time went on, he got better and better under Brad Davis' tutelage. And then also on the offensive line, of course, DJ Chester. We don't know what the plan is with him. We're not sure if he's going to be the starter. He could still be the starting center, or if he loses out, do they move him over the guard? Like, what do you do there? I mean, and of course, the coaching staff likes DJ Chester. Like, right? There's a reason why he was the starting center. There's a reason why Marler Martinez had to transfer out. They really like him. So I want to know what they're going to do with DJ Chester there. Cohen Eccles. Cohen Eccles, he's a solid guy, can be a solid starter as an offensive guard. We don't know. And then also Weston Davis. Those are two solid guys. All five of those guys started in the bowl game. So it'll be very interesting to see what the coach staff does there. But even if you look at the second team offensive line, Ori Williams, Braylon Moore, Carius Kearney, Josh Thompson, and I think Ethan Callaway was getting some second team reps as well. Like all five of those guys could be starters around this team, or like half the team.
I forgot about Ethan Callaway.
He got second team reps.
That's how deep they are. Yeah. Ethan Callaway was a 4-star top 100 recruit. Oh yeah, I forgot about him. You know,
Solomon Thomas has been getting a lot of playing time as well. Like so, got a lot of second team reps as well. So you have a solid foundation on the offensive line. I'm not saying like I know last year was kind of disappointing. I don't know how much of that was just maybe Jane Daniels hit a lot of the problems with what LSU had in the run game because they really didn't have to run. Jane Daniels was the running game, so you just didn't really think about it. How much of that was maybe offensive play call? Simple as that. There was a lot of criticism that went towards Joe Sled's way. Now he handled the run game to the point where Brian Kelly took over some of the play calling. And then of course also how much of that is on Brad Davis in terms of development. I think it's very little, but it's something you got to think about too as time goes on. But overall, LSU's offensive line room and his tight end room is in much better shape than when Brian Kelly first took over, right?
And then also, it's only going to get better.
Yeah.
It's only going to get better because I think the biggest addition they made isn't hot take. The biggest addition LSU made this offseason isn't a player, but it's going to be Alex Atkins.
And and I'm glad you mentioned that. I don't know why I didn't have this in my notes, but that's somebody that I've said this, like said before. I've been telling people this, and of course, I also have a. By the way, I also have a radio show too, WBOK New Orleans, and I also filled in for my boss at CrossCitySports.com. He also has his own radio station as well. Sometimes I might fill in for him, but one of the things I bring up is Alex Atkins, and Alex Atkins is a guy who was not only the offensive coordinator at Florida State, was also the offensive line coach of Florida State. So you're bringing a guy who can help out Joe Sloan with some of the run game and some of the and game planning for the run game in games. Right? He's a bit. I think that might be the most important piece to figure out what the hell is going on with the offense. I don't think Joe Sloan did a terrible job last year, but one of the things that LSU lacked was a strong run game. And bringing in a guy like Alex Atkins to help out with that will prove dividends because Joe Sloan isn't really the most experienced play caller in the world. So bringing in another experienced play caller like Alex Atkins, who was an offensive line coach, so you know you like physicality, will pay dividends. However, a game has not been played. We won't know how LSU looks until midway through the season next year, because I know there's a game against Clemson, but the first game doesn't really tell you what team will look like throughout the year. It's just the first game for not only LSU but also for Clemson as well. So we really won't know what the offense will look like until we get to October. But in the meantime, it looks like things can be improving on the offensive side of the ball. But you have to play the games. There's a reason why games aren't won in the spring and they aren't won in fall camp. They're won when you're playing against another team who is trying to achieve the same goals that you're trying to achieve. So there's that. The thing is, what the number one rule about spring ball and fall camp. If a player don't drink the Kool-Aid, right? There's a lot of things can still happen between March. Well, right now we're March 31st, so tomorrow will be April Fool's Day. Happy April Fool's Day for everybody. April 1st tomorrow, and then of course September. I think it was September 3rd when they play the first game of the year. It's first week of September. But anyway, let's move on to the defense. But I want to start off with the defensive line first. So in the defensive tackles, right so far, the two stars have been Ahmad Rowe and Dominique McKinley, and in the rotation has been Sean Washington, Sydir Mitchell, who is 6'6", 345 pounds, and of course Zion Williams has been getting some reps as well, and of course Jacoby Guillory is going to be out for the spring as he's still recovering from an injury. I think it was Achilles. He suffered a Achilles injury he suffered last year, but he'll be back in full force by the time fall camp runs around. Also, what makes the defensive line interesting is the defensive ends. And really, I cannot tell you who's going to be the starter because it's like a rotating, just a rotating door in terms of who's going to be the stars on the defensive ends because there's a lot of them, right? Jack Piber, the transfer from Florida, Patrick Payton, the transfer from Florida State, Jamari Butler, the transfer from Nebraska, Gabe Relaford, sophomore, Karlaj Cobbins, sophomore for Dutchland, Damian Shankland has been gaining a lot of reps, and I might be missing a player or two more. That's how deep that defensive line is, especially on the edge rushers. Zach, take it away. Talk about the defensive line, man, because it's one of the biggest concerns with LSU last year was this defensive line. But they actually ended up being one of the better groups on the team, and it seems like they're only going to get better. And most importantly, they have a lot more not only talent, but depth and size.
Yeah, I think Bo Davis did a commendable job last year maxing out what candidly, frankly, wasn't really that talented of a group. So I think, he was kind of squeezing as much blood out of the center as he could get. This seems like it's a deeper unit, a more talented unit. And, it's easy to say, but talent wins games. And I think Kyle Williams is inheriting a much better situation than what Bo Davis inherited last year. You still have Kevin Peoples coaching the edges and the ends. So it won't be a complete reset of the defensive line like what it first felt like when Bo Davis was leaving. Patrick Payton is one of those, like, if it booms, it's a big boom type of transfer addition for LSU. This could be a Arden Key type of disruptor that the Tigers hadn't had in quite a while. I mean, Caleb on Chason kind of battled some injuries throughout his career. Of course, Harold Perkins, but they're still trying to figure out how do we use Perkins. But like a true I guess let me apologize to BJ Ojolari. BJ Ojolari prior to Arden Key, but still you've been missing that true edge setting, get after type of true defensive ends. So I'm excited to see where Patrick Payton ends up in this scheme, because I expect him to be a starter and contribute heavily in 2025.
Yeah, I do too. And like I said, there's a lot of depth, and you never really had any. You really didn't have true edge rushers until last year. Of course, Xavier Jones and Braden Swinson were just causing havoc off the edges. This is really the first time where you saw LSU truly get pressure off the edge on the defensive line, right? Harold Perkins, of course, was out for most of the year last year, and you weren't really sure where to put Harold Perkins because, he looked great his first year, coming off the edge, but you got to remember this, too. Coaches scheme for that now. And also, Harold Perkins is not the biggest guy in the world. Harold Perkins, his listed size is about 6'1", 220. He doesn't look like 220. And he looks skinnier than that. Like, he looks more like a safety. And if you actually look at his PFF grades and coverage, he was one of the better coverage linebackers in the country. So, it's not like you had, what's his name? Khalil Mack, or you had Michael Parsons, who are both 6'4", 235, 240-pound demons. You had Harold Perkins, who is an undersized linebacker, right? A very talented linebacker, but undersized. And I think it's very important for LSU that you brought in a lot of veteran edge rushers, because not only you have a lot of young guys coming back who are very talented themselves. Garrett Relaford will be a dog at LSU. He's a dog. But you need to bring in veteran guys who with a high production to come help out, because that's something you need when you have got versatile guys like Harold Perkins and Will Weeks. You also need to bring in guys who can cause havoc on the edge, and then also, of course, on the interior. Ahmad Bro and Dominic McKinley are both back, and also a common theme among the defensive line, which you see among the defense as well. A lot of second year guys are stepping up, so it's very important that these guys get developed, and bringing in veterans like Jack Piber and Patrick Payne, Jamari Butler will help in the near future. So those guys know what it takes at this level when their time will come. And it could easily come this year because injuries happen. But Zach, let's move on to the linebackers. Of course, Harold Perkins and Whit Weeks are both out for the spring. They're dealing with injuries. But from what it looks like, the starter linebacker will be Devon Keys, Wes Weeks, and Whit Weeks. Harold Perkins will move to the star. That's a given. Blake Baker's already said it, so will be moving to the star. But then you also have Talon Singleton also made some plays, and then Charles Ross, the number one linebacker in the country last year, will probably get some. Is beginning a lot of reps as well. But speaking of the linebackers, and let's just talk about Harold Perkins moving to the star. What do you think about that?
We've been kind of moving Perkins all over for 3 years now, but this finally seems to be the place that he's meant to be all along. I get that Harold Perkins wanted to be an off-ball linebacker. I have lots of wants and dreams as well, but that doesn't mean it's going to happen. And Perkins being charitably listed at 225, he's not going to be Patrick Queen. He's not going to be Devin White. He's just not. But he can be very good and is very good. We saw him make an interception, flipping his hips 2 years ago against Missouri. That changed the game up in Columbia. He's got really good ball skills, and let him. The best thing about him was also the worst thing about him. That November of 2023 or two, excuse me, as a freshman, when he emerged and came on the scene. Well, guess what? Coaches are paid to watch film and go, okay, what does he do? Okay, let's just take away what he's good at, and they kind of figured him out. But I think Blake Baker is finally letting him be someone who can wreak havoc and just get after people. And you're not tipping your hand by having Harold Perkins set up at the edge. Oh, I wonder what he's going to do. Oh, he's going to run. No way. I'm so shocked. But if you let him be in that kind of off, and he can turn his hips and run, he can cover, he can get into the flats, he can do a whole bunch of more different things. He's a queen on the chessboard, and that's what he needs to be doing. He needs to give them, okay, where is 7? Where's he at? They need to look for him, and not just, oh, he's at the edge again. Okay, we'll just throw a big tackle at him because he can't get off the wash.
Yeah, I think I like to move the star too. That's something that, I've said even last year, where you probably have to move Harold Perkins to the star. He's too small to be coming off the edge, and he really doesn't. And also he doesn't really have the instincts like your stereotypical linebacker. What people think Harold Perkins is what Whit Weeks is, right? And I think that when Harold Perkins got hurt, it allowed the coaching staff to just focus in on everybody else, and it also allowed Whit Weeks to be Whit Weeks. I felt like when they're trying so hard to figure out the whole Harold Perkins situation, that I also felt like they forgot about everybody else. And so now I think you already know who you guys are, what the team is and what the skill set is. But also, okay, let's put Harold Perkins a star because he is most fit to be at that spot. You desperately needed speed at that spot because you didn't really have that with Major Burns. And also, Major Burns wasn't great in coverage. Harold Perkins actually might be better in coverage than Major Burns. Major Burns was a safety. That was his job, was to cover. So moving a guy like Harold Perkins, where you can do a lot of things with him out at star. You can blitz him off the edge. You can keep him pass coverage. There's a lot of things you can do with him when he's a star. So I think that's the best thing for him. It'll be very interesting, though, however, where do NFL scouts look at Harold Perkins? I think that'll be very interesting as well. Do they look at him more as a linebacker, or they look at him more as a safety? And that will tell you, because of course they're going to want to put Harold Perkins where he can succeed, and then also how it helps the team. But you also got to think about what are NFL scouts saying. I think that will determine, all three of those things will determine where they will use Harold Perkins the most. And then I think especially during important games, because important games I want to see what they're going to do with Harold Perkins. But I'll say this: the game against A&M, Florida, Alabama, where they had running quarterbacks, having a guy like Harold Perkins up there, you need him because not only was he fast enough to tackle those guys, he was physical, right? He's a lot more physical than Major Burns. So I think you missed having a guy like that out there, especially against Alabama. Jesus. But yeah, let's move on to the DBs because we got some. I want to talk about a little bit about the women's basketball and talk a little bit about the baseball, LSU baseball's sweep over Mississippi State. But our final topic is the defensive back room. Of course, we already mentioned that Harold Perkins will be playing star, and also Blake Baker did say about the star position. By the way, is that it doesn't have to be a star is not necessarily safety, right? For example, when Harold Perkins is there, they might play him a little bit more as a linebacker than a safety. But also, guys been getting a lot of star reps. It has been Austin Osborne and then Tamarcus Cooley. Tamarcus Cooley is also you can also play him at both the safety spot and at star, depending on what type of personnel you have in there, the situation, stuff like that. But I think Tamarcus Cooley will be more of a safety back there because you desperately need the help. So right now, but usually it's been Austin Osborne, Tamarcus Cooley, and also husband to Marcus Cooley out there at star. Harold Perks will evidently be the starter at star. At the cornerbacks, usually it's been Mansour Delane has looked great out there. The transfer for Virginia Tech. You expected him to be the starter at the starting quarterback at LSU right off the bat. He has been, and he's been doing a great job. Asher Stamps, another returning starter from last year's team. It'd be very interesting to see how he continues to develop under Corey Raymond, right? Of course, one of the godfathers of DBU at LSU. I'm not saying he is the godfather, right? Because Ron Cooper was the godfather, but he continued the legacy of Ron Cooper and then produced even more names in DBU, right? But then these are guys who've been rotating in. Jakeem Jackson, the transfer from Florida, who was a guy that Corey recruited to Florida. PJ Woodland, a guy who had some, was one of the brightest spots of the defense last year. He's back for a sophomore year. DJ Pickett, the number one cornerback in the country. He's usually been the starter whenever LSU brings up their second team defense. And he's looked great. I mean, he looks the part. He's showing you why he was rated as the number one cornerback in the country last year. And I wouldn't shock me if he ended up being the starter at some point during the season because he is long, athletic, and has speed, like serious speed. And then Michael Turner, former John Curtis Christian star at both cornerback and wide receiver. I think everyone wanted to know whether he's going to play offensive defense. Well, he's played defense, and he's looked great as well. One of the projects I went to, he looked great in one-on-ones, and he also had an interception to end the 11-11 session. So those are the 6 guys you've been seeing in rotation at corner. And then safeties, of course, I already mentioned DeMarcus Cooley will probably be a starter at safety, along with Javian Toviano. Javian Toviano will be a safety. They're not changing that. That's where he should be. And that's where he should have been ever since he set foot on the Ponderosa. Of course, in rotation, Joel Rogers he's actually got first team reps. There was a practice where Marcus Cooley was not there. He got first team reps. Of course, Deshaun Spears. He's a very talented safety, and I think he'll have the big season, whether that be as a starter or as a rotational piece. And of course, Austin Osbury, you have to throw his name in there. And also Jardine Gilbert is going to be out for the spring. Of course, he'll definitely be in the rotation, but right now he is not because he is dealing with an injury. But Zach, we all know that the cornerback room greatly improved last year, and that was expected when you brought in Corey Raymond. They're going to be even better this year, not only with more depth, but most importantly, talent. You need talent at that position, but also at the safety spot. That was the weakest spot.
Yeah.
For besides running back, the safety spot was the weakest link on LSU's roster, let alone the defense. Major Burns, Sage Ryan, and Jardine Gilbert who was supposed to be that guy, but it never really had quite. Now he was dealing with injuries, but he had a disappointing season. This is when we talk about is this the most talented and deepest team that Brian Kelly's ever had? It starts with the cornerback. It starts with the defensive backfield. It starts with the secondary. It does. This is DBU we're talking about. This is what DBU should be like. This is what when you think of LSU, you think of the secondary, and this is what it looks like. But now, of course, we gotta wait till the season starts. But right now, I'm really liking where the secondary is at.
The thing I like about the secondary is I think the additions that they made in the past couple of years under Kelly, I don't mean to say they were like bargain bin shopping, but like the people they brought in, especially like a Cooley, a Delane, and you can extend it down to like the receivers, with Barry and Brown and Nick Anderson and Bauer Sharp. These are difference makers. This isn't like, oh man, we need some bodies. You know how to play DB? Great, come play DB at LSU. Or, God bless them, but like the Louisiana reclamation projects of like, hey, I want to come home. All right, great. We need a person. This is like, hey, I want to play and make a difference. We got room for you. I mean, Jakeem Jackson was a top 5 corner coming out of high school a couple years ago, and you said he's running second team right now. And again, it's spring. There's a long way to go, but that just speaks to how talented this secondary room is. That a Jakeem Jackson, who is so highly thought of, might just be, I don't know, your 5th corner, your 4th corner. I it's a group I'm really fired up to see. I like some of the golden years of DBU. Like I was a freshman for Tyron Matthews, and I was there for Jamal Adams, and we have to keep going back to Patrick Peterson. But these past couple years, it's been so.
Especially what they draw.
Zach. Hey, you're having mic issues.
And
I think it's because you took out your earbuds. I think it's on. It might be on. Yeah, it's coming through.
I'm not me.
Hold on. Can you speak real quick? I still can't hear you. Yeah. But yeah, so while Zach's trying to figure out his whole mic situation, but yeah, so yeah, we're gonna go off piggyback what Zach's saying. Zach, just let me know in the private chat when you're when it sounds better. But yeah, this defensive backfield is like you said, Zach, like when Tyrann Mathieu was here in 2011, they were deep. You had Mo Claiborne, you had Greg Brooks. Yeah, I mean the defensive backfield the secondary in general just had a lot of depth. Of course, I think Zach, that was your freshman year when they had that 2011 defense, right? So yeah, that's. I mean, if you look at actually, let me pull it up. But hey Zach, is it? Can you try to speak real quick?
I
Hey, try and honestly, hey, what I'll do is take out your take off the Bluetooth out of your earbuds. Like, take off the Bluetooth and just speak to the computer, if that's possible. Because I think it's something to do with your earbuds. But let me show you this real quick. So if you look at LSU's 2011 team, you'll truly see what I'm talking about. And this is the last.
What about now?
I can hear you. I can hear you a lot better. Okay, sure. Continue on. I'm trying to look this up. Continue. You left off at Tyrann Mathieu, basically, and that's when all the max issues happened.
Yeah, I was just saying that they're deep and they're talented and there's difference makers, and it really hasn't seemed like they've had this much depth since 2011, which that's a long time ago now.
Right.
The 19 team, of course, you had Stingley, and I really do hope that DJ Pickett is the second coming of Derek Stingley, and that he's a guy who comes in right away, day one, and has one side of the field locked down and allows I think best case scenario, Pickett and Delane is the 2019 version of Stingley and Christian Fulton.
Yeah, as you look at here, I mean, of course, 2019 had a great defense, had a good defense too. Although for most of the season they looked like an above average defense. Grant Delpit, of course, won the Jim Thorpe, and of course, Derek Stingley had one of the better freshman campaigns we've ever seen from a defensive back. Not even just at LSU, just in general. I mean, he had 7 picks that year. And really, you can make a case probably should have been the Jim Thorpe Award winner that year. He had a better season than Grant Delpit did, and he should have been up for the award. But if you look at this roster, Eric Reed, I think he was I'm not sure if he was All-American, but he played in the NFL for a very long time, was a Pro Bowler. Brandon Taylor was a dog. He was a dog. Like third round draft pick. Morris Claiborne was the Jim Thorpe Award winner that year in 2011. And then Tyrann Mathieu on the other side. Oh, of course, Tyrann Mathieu was a Heisman finalist, played in the NFL for a very long time, but 3 or 4 time Pro Bowler. Like, has been one of the better safeties in the NFL for a very long time. His backup, Terrell Simon, was drafted in the NFL. I mean, Terrell Simon was a 5th round pick, was a solid player. Ron Brooks was a backup to Morris Claiborne. Like, that's how much depth that team had, and not only just the defensive back. I mean, the whole defense in general had a lot of depth. But I mean, this whole defensive backfield, like I said, Tyrann Mathieu, 3-time Pro Bowler, 4-time All-Pro, SC Defensive Player of the Year, Chuck McNarick Award winner. And then I think Jeff Lane. Oh, I don't know who that guy is. I don't know why they clicked to a random position.
Oh, yeah, I remember Jeff Lane.
Yeah. So I mean, but that's what I'm saying. Like, that's what LSU's defense used to look like. And that's something we haven't seen from LSU in a very long time. At times LSU just looked like they're a soft team. They've looked soft, and a lot of people have accused them of being soft. And I think this would be the defense that could turn everything around. And Blake Baker is one of the better defensive play callers in college football. He has a lot of tools to work with. He has a lot of versatility at every single position on the field. This is the year that LSU's defense has to be LSU. They have to not LSU. They have to look like dogs. They have to look like the guys who are gonna knock your head into the pavement. We have not seen that from LSU in a very long time. And if you want to go to a playoff, let alone compete in the SEC, you have to have absolute dogs on the defense. If you don't, you're going to continue to have these 8-4, 9-3 type seasons. And that's another topic for another show in terms of how much pressure is on Brian Kelly. We just want to talk about what's been going on with spring football, of course, because this is the first show that we're here with you guys. And then also we just started and spring football started 2 weeks ago. So we probably would have already had this kind of conversation, but we got hired and we're grateful for it. And we're going to continue this conversation as spring goes along. This week, there's going to be no media availability as they're going to be on spring break. But next Saturday, will be the spring game. That's going to be most of our content, of course, and also the week after, they're still going to have spring practice as they moved everything around so Brian Kelly could accommodate, spring break, of course. So that's it for spring football. Let's move into a little bit about women's basketball, touch on that a little bit, and then we'll also touch on baseball a little bit. I don't want to be on here for too long, but we could touch on both those subjects. We might as well talk about, those are two big topics right now, but just for LSU sports in general, but women's basketball. LSU lost against UCLA in the Elite Eight. Unfortunately, it's the third straight. They had the third straight Elite Eight appearance, but it did not go according to plan. And not only is it the last game for Anisa Morrow, but it could very well maybe the last game for Flodgett, as she will be, even though she's a junior, she will be eligible for the WNBA draft because I think she is of age because I think that's 22. Yeah, she's 22. So, she is eligible for the WNBA draft. And I'm pulling up the stats right here. So, Flodgett Johnson, 10 for 17, 28 points, and 4 rebounds. Anisa Morrow
24 in the second half. She almost dragged LSU to the finish line. So you can't fault Flodgett, especially with the shin issue she was having. She gave it her all. She definitely redeemed herself from that really awful Sweet 16 showing she averaged like 3 points, 4 points, something like that. She balled out and she almost beat UCLA by herself.
Oh yeah, I mean definitely she was awesome, man. It was probably one of the best games Flauja's played ever since she stepped foot on campus. And then Nizamaro, not the best shooting night, 7 for 19, but she scored 15 points and had 7 rebounds. And unfortunately, she was she got fouled out, and so and it was the game was almost and her nose busted. Yeah, it was a very physical game. But what made the difference in this game was that LSU did not shoot the ball well after those two. Samaya Smith, 2 for 6 shooting. Even though she had 10 rebounds, only 4 points. Like I said, 2 for 6. Michaela Williams, who's usually a high-volume shooter, 4 for 13 and only 10 points. And then the only 2 other people that scored were Jersey Wolfenbarger, who had 2 points, and Last Year Poa, who had 3 points. No, and outside of Flauja Johnson and Nizamaro and Michaela Williams, your big 3. The only other person that had more than 3 shot attempts outside of Samaya Smith was Kaylin Gilbert, and Kaylin Gilbert went 0 for 7. LSU shot 37.3% as a team, which is slightly less than UCLA. UCLA only made 38.2% of its field goal attempts, but two big reasons why UCLA won this game was because UCLA shot nearly 42% from 3, 10 for 24 to be exact, and Gabrielle Jaquez, Jaime Jaquez's little sister, 5 for 7 from the field, 4 for 5 from behind the arc, and had 18 points with 8 rebounds. Lauren Betts, 50% from the field with 17 points, 7 rebounds. And of course, but also Tamia Gardner came off the bench, 5 for 11 for 15 points, 5 for 8 from beyond the arc, and that was the number one, was the 3-point shooting. But if you look at the bench points, UCLA's bench outscored LSU's bench 22-6, and one of the main criticisms about Kim Mulkey, in which there aren't a whole lot because she's done a lot of great things for LSU, including win a national championship. But one of the main criticisms about LSU's teams under Kim Mulkey is that they haven't had the depth, and even their national championship team, they really didn't have the depth either. Although they had good depth, but if they had gone against a team like South Carolina, they would have lost. But they just happened to got hot at the right time, and of course,
Jasmine Carson just happened to have the game of her life on the perfect day. But up until that, was averaging 2 points in the tournament, and then boom, 22 points. Okay, I'll take it.
Yeah, and also Angel Reese and Alexis Morris did not play most of the second half. That's how great they were playing. It was just a kind of a one-off performance, and not to take any away from what they did. I mean, they deserve to be the national champions. I mean, they were great. They looked great all throughout the tournament. But LSU's never had the depth, even going back to last year, right? That's been a big issue with LSU under Kim Mulkey, because they've never really had the depth, and a lot of that is because, quite frankly, LSU's relied too much on transfers instead of immediate impact freshmen. And of course, I'm not saying she's got to get every single 5-star like Donna Staley does or Gino Auriemma does, but you have to start developing your players. I think that's been a big issue with LSU. The only 2 players that were truly developed under LSU have been Flauja and Michaela Williams. Everybody else has been transfers for the most part.
Yeah. And we had mentioned at the start, Samaya Smith was looking like someone you'd say, yeah, they developed her. I mean, she tore her ACL, and that was a bummer at the start of last season. But really started to come into her own, especially in this tournament. Was arguably LSU's best player in the tournament this year. And with Morrow, was kind of given like, hey, could this be Reese Morrow? Could this be Angel Reese, LaDeja Williams with the way Samaya Smith is playing? And right before we hit record or went live, she apparently is putting her name in the portal now. you can always take your name out. This isn't sticking, but I was shocked when I saw it. I also think one last thing about the game yesterday. I think what undid LSU the most was when Lauren Betts sat for the final 2 minutes of the first quarter and the entire second quarter. Not only did they not take advantage of it, they got outscored. And that's UCLA's best player. That's an All-American. That's a 6'7" rim protector, and you got to score 22-12 in the second quarter with her on the bench. So for them to not take advantage of that, but to your point, what did UCLA have that LSU doesn't? They got depth, and for so many times this year and last year, it really has seemed like LSU's been kind of playing 3-on-8, 4-on-10. Sometimes they just. Maybe this incoming class, the number one class that they have signed, maybe this is what finally gets LSU to be 7 deep, 8 deep, 9 deep. They have 4 or 5 stars coming in. Maybe this is what changes things. But, when they signed Michaela Williams, that was supposed to change things. And other than Michaela Williams, you kind of missed on Aaliyah Del Rosario. Through 2 years at least, you've missed on her. And that was the number one class. And not that I'm not going to say you missed on Haley Van Lith, you just misused Haley Van Lith. So your transfer additions, I mean, yeah, you hit on Morrow, you hit on Reese, but Jersey Wolfenberger didn't really give you much. Kaylin Gilbert didn't really give you much. It came and it went. A very streaky shooter, and boy, she went cold at the worst possible time yesterday. 0 for 7 from the floor.
Yeah, I mean, definitely. I mean, just when you're a team that doesn't have a whole lot of depth, and you have an off night, it's always going to be a tough uphill battle for any team. But kind of touch on this quickly before we're going to talk about baseball to end the show. I mean, Kim Mulkey's been hitting the Twitter notifications. Every time, all my Twitter notifications have been about Kim Mulkey's post-game press conference. And I'm not sure if you've seen it, Zach, but there's a student reporter from KLSU. And you can kind of tell Kim Mulkey was trying to help him out a bit. The problem is it just came out really wrong. And it's been I think people are having an overreaction about it. I don't think it was that bad. I mean, also that question was asked after a loss. Like, yeah, I mean,
this is a nothing burger. It's fine.
Yeah, I mean, it wasn't the best question, but we're talking about a student here, so a lot of the students are nervous, right? When they ask first questions. I've been in that boat before, and even you, Zach, you can speak yourself from your experience. And there's a lot of people I know, that have probably gone through the same experience that young student reporter did. But it's just kind of unfortunate that we're in the social media era now, and somebody like who is as strong of a figure as Kim Mulkey is, and people were out there that really don't like Kim Mulkey. For different reasons, but they don't like him. For some people, don't like Kim Mulkey. It got overblown, and that's what happens. Just in this day and age, and I get it. Because she handled it differently, probably so. But I think it's like you said, Zach, it's a nothing burger. But let's talk about LSU baseball to wrap things up.
You catch up on sleep?
Yeah. Well, I honestly when did I fall asleep during the game? I don't even remember. Like, it was such a late game that I'm like, I want to power through this, but like, dude, I need to catch up on sleep before, So they already won the series too. So, but I did watch the first two. That's all, and that's all that matters, really. But the first game for LSU swept Mississippi State. It's the second time. Well, the second of the 3 SEC weekends. LSU swept 2 of them, one against Missouri, which, is Missouri. But they swept Mississippi State, one of the longtime rivals, and a rebound. Well, really, LSU overall had a great week. I mean, after you had lost a tough weekend series to Texas on the road, you respond with a 17-4 beatdown of UL. And, of course, a lot of LSU fans and a lot of UL fans have been beefing on their Twitter. Just like every year for the most part. And then you open up and then you sweep Mississippi State. Talk a little bit about the first game. LSU won 8-6. Derek Curiel, Stephen Milam, and Dickinson all had a home run. Cade Anderson pitched 4.1 innings. 4.1 innings with 6.65 runs all earned and 5 strikeouts. Not his best night. Not his best night. But when you have a deep pitching staff like LSU does, it helps out. Connor Beng got the win. Although he's in for a short little while, he still got credited with the win. But Zach Cowan got his 3rd save of the year, pitching the last 4 innings and had 7 strikeouts. 7 strikeouts.
Just one hit, I believe, too.
Yeah, one hit. Yeah, one hit.
One base run over 4 innings. Yeah.
Yeah, and he struck out 7 of the 13 batters he faced. So that's more than half of the batters he faced that he struck out. That was game 1. Game 2 was a lot more low scoring. 2-1 victory for LSU. LSU took an early 1-0 lead in the second inning before Mississippi State took tied the game up in the 4th inning. And then, of course, LSU took the lead once again. A 2-1 lead in the 5th inning, and that was a wrap. Also, I think I touched on the first game too. LSU had to score 5 runs to get the lead. It was in the 5th inning because Mississippi State was doing the number on LSU, so it was a comeback victory for the first game. This game was just more of LSU just took control of the game. But Anthony Ianson, after a little bit of the crap he's taken over the year, he's still undefeated on the year. He pitched 5 innings, allowed 5 hits, but he also had 12 strikeouts. Pitched 103 times and had 12 strikeouts. He faced 23 batters, and more than half those batters he struck out. What a performance by Ianson. And then Kason Evans picked up his 5th save of the year, striking out 6. So yeah, and it is Kason Evans and Zach Cowan would be starters anywhere else around the SEC and even around the country. Zach Cowan was a legit starting pitcher for Wofford last year. He was their ace last year. Now he's coming out of the bullpen for LSU. So you have starting pitchers in the rotation for LSU. And also Michael Braswell had the best performance from behind the plate, 2 for 3. And talk about going to the last game, a 17-8 demolition course for the
9:30 p.m. first pitch.
Yeah. 1 o'clock. I think the game. I think everyone got out of there at 1 o'clock. But I think I saw something where Koki was still there till 5.
No,
and Koki's the lead baseball writer for. I think he got out of there beforehand, but he didn't finish everything until 5 o'clock. And he's, of course, the lead baseball reporter for LSU. So I hope he got some sleep that Sunday. I'll have to ask him. But my God, I mean, just I feel bad for. I mean, I pray for all those guys to stay up late to work late at Alex Fox Stadium, but also all the fans to stay up to watch the game, especially the ones in the Eastern time block. But LSU went 7 for 14 with 2 outs. They went 14 for 31 with runners on, which is pretty good. A batting average of 4.52. They went 10 for 17. Yeah, they went 5. They batted 588, 10 for 17 with the runners in scoring position, and they had 6 2-out RBIs. So a great hitting performance by LSU. Last year, that was kind of the story where they were terrible with runners on. They're terrible, just terrible running scoring position. I mean, they're just overall terrible in situational hitting. But this last game, so far this season, they've been much better at that. In terms of pitching, they just let loose the whole bullpen for the most part. Chase Shore started the game. He had 5 strikeouts before being subbed out after the 4th inning. Then Connor Ware was credited with the win. He's 4-0 for the year. He only pitched 1 inning with 1 strikeout. Then Rizzi got in. Then TJ Primo got in. Then Connor Ben got in, and then Jayden Newt got in. I'm not sure, and then Williams got in, but it was just an overall a revolving door of pitchers, pitchers that never got used. Not only throughout the weekend, but even on Tuesday night. So LSU could just like put out whoever they wanted to because they didn't really pitch anybody. But on the hitting side, Jared Jones 3 for 4 with the home run and 3 RBIs. Hunter Dickinson 3 for 5 for 3 RBIs and the double. Stephen Milam 2 for 4 with the double and 2 RBIs. Hunter Dickinson also 3 RBIs. Ethan Fry, who's been one of the better designated hitters around the country. He's had a great year so far. Probably the most improved player on LSU's roster. 2 for 5 with 2 RBIs. And then Luis Hernandez, 3 for 5 with 2 RBIs. And Chris Stanfield, 3 for 5 with an RBI. So we had 1, 2, 3, 4 batters have 3 hits. And then also you had 7 batters have 2 or more hits. An overall great performance from LSU this weekend. Of course, but last weekend, this weekend they'll play against the number 10 team in the country in Oklahoma. But Zach, from your end, what did you make of LSU's performance at Alex Fox Stadium?
I'm hoping that the outing that Jayden Newt had is a sign of things to come because this LSU bullpen, aside from Cohen and Evans, still a little shaky, but Newt threw strikes in game 3. And yeah, he was working with the 17-8 lead or whatever, but he didn't walk anybody. That revolving door that you had mentioned between Shores and Newt, well, one reason why it was revolving doors because a lot of these dudes couldn't get it over the plate. Cooper Williams, I don't mean to single him out, but Cooper Williams threw 1 pitch. They pulled him because he hit that one guy with his 1 pitch. And James was like, all right, we're not doing this. So they brought in Newt. Rizzy walked a couple of guys. Just everybody. There's just been this command issue. And I'm not trying to be a negative person, but I'm just stating the facts. I mean, there's bullpen issues, and it cost you that second Texas game. I do think at 7-2, you're probably right where you need to be. You probably shouldn't have blown that Texas game, but if you flip the coin the other way, you probably shouldn't have won that second or that first Mississippi State game. So baseball's got a way of evening things out. So LSU's probably where they should be. I think this weekend in Norman is going to be really telling because if you want to be skeptical of LSU, I think it's kind of fair. The out of the non-conference schedule was really weak. And yeah, it's really cool to be 7-2 in SEC play, but 6 of those wins have come against teams with 1 combined SEC win. You went to Texas, you played someone of equal quality, and you dropped 2 out of 3. What happens this weekend, Thursday, Friday, Saturday? For those unaware, it's Thursday, Friday, Saturday this week. What happens when you all go to Norman and you play someone just as good as you are? Do you drop 2 out of 3 again, or can you win a road series? This is going to be a very telltale series for me because now that we're flipping the calendar to April, the intensity is going to start ratcheting up. Tennessee's coming in a couple weeks. I believe they play Arkansas this month. A&M's bad, but you have that first weekend of May against A&M, and they're probably going to dig that. Well, I don't know. A&M might just be cooked. Maybe they won't dig their way out, but you would think a team as talented as A&M, that's still looming. But this weekend in Norman, if you take 2 out of 3, then I can firmly say this is a College World Series contending team, not a team to just host a super regional, but get to Omaha and possibly win games in Omaha.
Yeah. I think this team has the ability to get to Omaha, like you said, Zach. It's just, it's just a matter of can they get some of their pitching issues fixed. The thing is about this LSU bullpen is that it's very young. There's a lot of freshmen and sophomores pitching. Maverick Rizzi is a freshman, right? Mm-hmm. Casey Evans is a freshman. DJ Primo, I think it's a sophomore junior. Shay Shores is coming off of a UCL team. Tommy John. He didn't pitch at all last year, so he hasn't pitched in 2 years. Cade Anderson, this is his first time being in this starter rotation, mostly full time. and he's only a sophomore. So you have a lot of young guys in this pitching on this pitching staff. They're gaining meaningful. They're pitching in meaningful games. So I think over time, they'll get better as the season goes on because, like I said, they're young. So you're going to start seeing these command issues early. You just don't want to see it continuing on as the season. You don't want to see this continue as the season goes along, right? But I think
it'll get better too when Gidry gets back.
What's up?
I was going to say it's going to get better too whenever Gidry gets back. I mean, we've been waiting on it for all season. I mean, we assume he's going to come back. I don't know when that's going to be, but Gavin Gidry at some point you would expect would come back, and that's another trusted arm in the bullpen. So this isn't just a Cohen and Case and Evans show once Gidry gets back. Also, I don't know if it means anything, but William Schmidt didn't throw this weekend. I don't know if that was by design or what. I'm not trying to look anything into it, but didn't throw. So who knows? Yeah. But that's another really talented arm that's probably going to figure it out at some point.
Yeah, and like I said, he's a guy who will be in the starting rotation next year for LSU. Like that's going to be a given. He's that good.
Yeah, him and Evans.
But yeah,
Friday, Saturday.
Yeah, but like I said, it's just you're going to start seeing these issues as this goes along because they're young. But yeah, that's just how it's going to be. The only thing I just hope for, they don't peak too early, right? I'd rather have them go some of these issues now, start losing a few games, and then rather than them peak too early and then they go through a bad stretch of games and lose confidence. I also don't want what happened last year where you lost so many games at the beginning, SEC games at the beginning. You had to fight and claw your way to even make the tournament. Luckily, you made it to the SEC championship game, so all that got thrown out to the wayside because you advanced far in the SEC tournament. I'd rather have this team go through some of the struggles now, kind of go through struggles early, and then start picking up as the season goes along. Because I don't want them to struggle so much where you got to fight back, but I also don't want them to have as much success early on because I don't want them to kind of peak too early and then wear off. I want them to get hot at the right time. Speaking from an LSU fan. But anyway, that's going to wrap up today's show. We're going to see you guys next Monday. We'll have another show on Thursday in the near future, just not right now because we're starting to pick it back up. We want to have a consistent schedule before we really start laying loose. We might have a post-weekend recap of like baseball and stuff like that. Next week we'll read the spring game, so we probably have a Saturday or Sunday show, kind of recapping the spring game, or we might just move that to Monday. I'm not sure, but we'll figure something out. We just want to keep it consistent. Monday at 6:00, and the show won't usually be this long. It's just that this is the first show, and we want to roll out a lot of stuff right now because this week is going to be a very slow week for LSU because they're off for football. And of course, we don't want to talk too much about baseball because obviously this is not a baseball network, but we'll fit in LSU baseball because this is a very big deal here in Louisiana, especially in Baton Rouge. But in the meantime, I'm Grant Sashray, Zach Junda. And you can follow us right here on the Twitter pages, of course, at Sashray Grant. Just follow Zach Junda at Zach Junda, his personal Twitter account, and the Valley Shook, which is ATV Shook, which is also basically his personal account as well. The same jokes you're going to get on his personal, the same jokes you're going to get on in the Valley Shook. Make sure to follow all those associated Twitter accounts. Also, make sure to follow the Voice of College Football Network on Twitter, and also make sure to like this video and subscribe to LSU at the Voice of College Football Network. See y'all later.